This program is brought to you by Globus. This program is brought to you by Globus.
Youth policy and perception, a new wave of African transformation. Hello to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this other edition of your informative knowledge sharing program, Global Insight. Today, we are focusing on the youth, a reservoir for the African continent. And it is said that the youth represent a huge reservoir for Africa. They are a driving force for transformation. Therefore, as the continent emerges with its intersection in the global landscape, with complexities as well of modern governance, economic challenges, social change, public policy, civic and political apathy, we question the place of the young people to catalyze a new wave of progress through their aspirations and innovations. The African Union Agenda 2063 states we need to firmly place youth at the center of our collective effort to build our continent, highlighting the critical role of youth in shaping the future. Moving to build the Africa we want, the Republic of Congo in 2026, January to be precise, unveiled its modern youth-driven national development with the successful conclusion of the nationwide Workshop of the Future competition organized under the patronage of the Avenue du Congo movement in partnership with the Globus International Association. The grand finale of the event at the Congress Palace in the capital city of Brazzaville from January 27 to 28, 2026 attracted over 100 finalists and an audience of over 2,000 participants. The event celebrated 70 outstanding young laureates and unveiled several innovative projects aimed at advancing the country's socio-economic growth. Thus, this session of Global Insight this day seeks to explore how innovative initiatives are reshaping perceptions and responsibility among the young people, not just in the Republic of Congo, but across the African continent as a whole, and how can these actually translate to bringing and positioning the African youth in the global arena. This sentiment echoes as well as we dive into how youth innovation is cultivating a wave of change, challenging established narratives and fostering active involvement in policy making and nation building. And this with a panel of experts, particularly from the young voices across the African continent, the global south, particularly India. We are going to decode the details of this topic, focusing on the young people, their potentials, and how a change of perception and also their engagement in, political affairs, or probably their understanding of the policies in place can help actually propel them to take in the position that they actually deserve in the total transformation of the African continent. To note that this topic is largely timely because of the high level of polarization across the internet sphere or the ecosystem. But then we see how African youth can still make a difference and, of course, take the positive aspect of this fourth industrial revolution to ensure that they are a beacon of transformation of their respective nations. I will join you right after the jingle, and then we uncover the panel for discussion this day. Welcome back. If you are just tuning in, this is Global Insight. Today we are focused on youth and youth discussing things that do really matter of them and see how they can be catalysts of change, catalysts of development and transformation in a world that is actually progressing very fast without wasting much time. We go straight away to introducing the panel, and I will acknowledge the presence of Danjai, who is founder Karma Foundation, co-founder and director at Zect PVT Limited. She's joining us from India. You're welcome to Global Insight this day.
Thank you so much, Clarice. It's such a pleasure to be a part of this panel, specifically since I'm the only Asian and more particularly Indian representative here. And it gives me great pleasure to be here on such an important topic about the power of youth, particularly in these times when I think most of the societies across the globe are navigating rapid demographic changes, economic recalibration, and a lot of geopolitical repositioning as well. And I think that is where the role of youth comes to the forefront, because we are not only the future decision makers, but I think we are the people who can bring about a change now. We have to raise our voices. We have to become a part of the system to bring about the change, to bring about a more ordered society wherein we can build a more inclusive and powerful world together. And I personally feel as youths, we do not carry a lot of historical baggages. So we are in a position where we can, think broadly, because the aspirations of youth across the world, I have traveled to different countries and I know the aspirations of youth across the globe are similar. Mm-hmm. We look for prosperity. And particularly when we talk about Africa and Asia, or particularly India, the best part of our culture is we are more towards a collective society rather than individual societies. So for us, success does not mean individual success only. For us, success is when the community grows together. And that is the essence of this century, when we grow together, we work together. And as an Indian, we have always believed in the philosophy of Vasudev Kutundakam. That means world is one family. And we believe we should work together for mutual growth, prosperity. And I think youth has a major role to play in that.
Absolutely. It's about thinking globally and, of course, applying locally and bringing together those aspects which are similar. As we often say that the world is a global village, we come together with ideas to make it a better place. In the same light, let me take you now to the United States of America. We are meeting Solomon Inomani, who is Leadership and Human Development Consultant, founder of Earmarks Project. It's a pleasure welcoming you on this platform for the first time, dear Solomon.
Well, Clarice, it took you how many years? I'm happy I'm finally here. Thank you for having me. And hello to the panelists. And I see that they are all young people. This is good. We're talking about youth, and then there are a lot of young people here to talk about youth, which is very, very good. I'm happy to be on the panel. I'm happy to be on Pan-African Media. I think this is the first Pan-African Media I am speaking on, so this is good. It means 2026 will be different. When we talk about youth empowerment and youth projects in Africa, I'm not very optimistic about it, because there's a lot of conversations that go around it, but then the practical implementation of these conversations is just a flux to me. I'm happy about what is happening in Congo, and the fact that it became a central stage thing in the involvement of the government and how engaged everybody was about it. This is good. This is a good sign. But that's where I leave it. It's a good sign, right? It's a good sign. We want to see what these projects become in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years. and how effective these projects are able to help. Another thing that I want to talk about is contextualizing African projects. And I know that we're going to talk about this as we go through the conversation. Contextualizing African projects. We cannot be building Western projects for Africa. We have to be very careful so that we're not celebrating Western innovations for Africa. We have to contextualize African projects. So as we build projects and we build initiatives, I hope they are African, right? And so I'm happy we'll have a lot of time to break these things down. But I know that my talk sounds a little bit pessimistic, but I am trying to be as realistic as possible with this conversation. So I'm pleased to be here, Clarice. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely, and that is why today we see that we have the young people to discuss actually what is important for them. And you're talking about contextualizing, and that is the philosophy or the idea of the Global Association with other organizers of this, avenue movement that we saw how it brought about young people celebrating talents. And the question lies on sustainability, and that is a promise that came live from the this event that was highly praised in Congo Republic, making youth to be, in front of what matters. And of course, it will lead to this sustainability and practical implementation of projects like you've just highlighted, Solomon. And thank you so much for giving importance to this rendezvous. And we are coming back to the Republic of Cameroon. We start by acknowledging Destiny Afro founder, Afro Foundation Cameroon. It's a pleasure having you, I think for the first time still, on the Global Insight platform, where we exchange knowledge and of course chat issues of utmost importance. Hello, Destiny.
Hello, Clarice. Thank you for having me today. I want today to discuss this crucial topic that is necessary for Africa's future and transformation. I would like to begin by acknowledging the immense potential that youth in Africa actually hold. According to statistics, Africa today is the world's youngest continent, with more than 60% of the population being young people. By 2030, African will make up about 42% of the world's youth population growth. African youth is going to make up about 0.5% of the world's youth. I believe this demographic edge carries with it a huge potential, unlike any other continent. And however, this potential has not been full systemic changes. I think that is what we want to look at today, because I believe change is on the way. For example, what happened in Congo and what is happening in Cameroon. I believe there's a shift on the way, and that's what we want to explore today. So.
Thank you. Hoping that the internet connection will permit us to actually have a very uninterrupted conversation, because it is vital as it continues to widen the horizon and help youth across the globe to ensure that they are exposed to what matters. And that is where the key term perception actually comes. Selective exposure and perception is what will propel this reservoir to the point of being that catalyst for change and transformation across the continent and beyond. We also acknowledge Pufong Javran, CEO Legacy Holdings, the forest trader, who is also an agricultural enthusiast. He's joining us from Cameroon. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you very much, Clarice. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all co-panelists. It's a pleasure once more to be on the platform to share knowledge with respect to the topic youth policy and perception, a new wave of African transformation. I think, as Destiny rightly said, Africa is like a young continent, not young in the sense that it's just recently created, but a continent that has a greater part of its population, of our population, made up of young people, and it is high time we should understanding that that population in Africa actually is a strategic force for shaping our continent's future. In the past decades, we have always talked about an African youth to be a victim of maybe unemployment, immigration, conflict, and policy exclusion. But I think we are in that time in Africa where that narrative is highly changing, because African youths are gradually positioning themselves, taking policies that affect them, their day-to-day life, taking policies that shape their continent and affect the entire world positively. As we just witnessed from the L'Atelier de l'Avenir in Brazzaville, we noticed that youths were coming up with amazing topics like Mon Entreprise, Mon Pays, Mon Entreprise, and so on and so forth, the teachers of the future, and so on. So youth are strategically positioned in Africa to drive change, drive policy that will have a positive impact on in the entire world. So I think that this topic is actually a speaking time that we look at it and see how far we can go to ensure that we transform Africa and we don't wait for others to transform Africa on our behalf. Thank you.
Java, looking at for probably the case study on the table today, which we saw how it unfolded in Congo Brazzaville, I will appreciate if probably you bring more context again to the topic, especially on the aspect of perception. I think this is a problem that it's not really peculiar just to Congo. If we have to take example from Cameroon, given the maybe statistics that we get from social networks, we will discover that aspect of perception is still a problem, and it is making young people not to live to their full potentials. So still taking this initiative of a global association, probably to celebrate talent, like we highlighted some of the key points, like movement is life category, where we talked about food security and innovation. We're talking about the ideology of the future is now, and many other things which are valuable that can propel the young people. Let's contextualize this with understanding the role of perception in helping to provide a clear trajectory that will bring relevance to the existing policies probably outlined by the African Union and even individual nations towards positioning of the vibrant young people of the African continent. The question is directed to you, Javans.
Please, can you come again, please?
We want to understand, because when we look at the topic, we've highlighted youth policy and perception. So perception is how the youths themselves perceive whatever thing is happening to the probably around the continent, and of course their time, their intellect, and the importance that they actually give to the opportunities present across the continent. So taking now the example of the Congo Brazzaville event that celebrated innovation, youth talent, and leading towards sustainable development and probably entrepreneurship, we want to explain further why it is imperative for a change of mindset set through perception to help position African youth towards a right trajectory that will not actually want to bring, like Solomon said, bringing Western ideas to probably fit the context of the African continent.
Okay, so if you look at the workshop that held in Congo, you'll notice one thing that captivated my mind. There was a statement, I will say it in French, La Voix de la Nation, that is the voice of the nation. And this is a message carried by the youth. That means they have that understanding that irrespective of the fact that in the present dispensation in the African continent, they don't occupy significant policy positions, they believe that they are still at the helm of policies as far as the nation is concerned. Their voices count. And every young person in Africa is trying to change the perception we have had in the past, which has always been that of us being unemployed, that of us maybe being highly victims of migration, maybe being used as child soldiers, sorry. So now we are gradually changing that perception by coming into the table, making decisions ourselves, participating or voicing our concerns about the future that we are seeking for, hoping that with time, maybe those that are actually occupying the positions will see the possibility of bringing us into the table where we can vote. Maybe when I talk about us voting, it's not casting votes for those who are to lead us. No, I'm talking about us participating in the decision makings, like being voted into positions that we can actually take decisions that will not only affect us in positions, but will affect every young person. So if we say that gradually, as we are airing our voice, we are showing the determination to participate in decision making that directly affects us, if we are given the opportunity to sit on the table and we come to the table now, taking decisions that properly affect us and affect the entire youthful population of the continent, we should be able to do something that is reflective of the total population or of the total, because if you do something that reflects or affects the total youthful population, it will obviously affect the entire continent, because we are the ones that constitute the population that is on the continent. We are not only the active population, but we are actually the majority of those that occupies the continent. So we are actually trying to redefine it. So our question is not whether youth are transforming Africa, but how deeply policy frameworks and global perceptions are aligning with the reality that we as African youth we are putting in place. Because we might just go to conferences, we make the decisions, we air our voices, but when it comes to the decision table, we are not actually there to vote it, to maybe to cast votes that will actually pass on resolutions that affect the youth. So how deep are the policies governing Africa now really reflecting the aspirations of the youth, as the youth are the ones that have become the key actors in driving the perception change in the African continent?
And that is a very actually a good question that we are going to answer together in the course of this discussion as we continue to contextualize our topic. I think from what you've said, I will need to go back to Solomon to get again probably a global understanding of we identify in our preamble that the African youth represent a reservoir. And when we look at the African continent, we see a continent that has about 70% of its population being maybe a young population or youthful population. Let's try to, from what you said, you know, it's true you're somehow pessimistic, but then it's time to think on how to see probably bring about the materialization, the practicality of theories or ideas that pertain to the emancipation of the continent's vibrant population. We are wanting to look at Africa's youth as a reservoir versus global perception traps. This is a problem that is affecting a whole lot of people, and I think that is what is making maybe innovators to think probably think that they can take Western and invest probably on Africa and expect the same results.
Okay. So, Clarice, I want us to be as objective as possible.
Absolutely.
I'm not pessimistic, I'm realistic. A reservoir is not always a good body of water. Sometimes a reservoir can be a reservoir of poisonous water. So just because we call this something reservoir doesn't mean it's necessarily good. And whenever I hear of the voice of African youth, I question if it's not just gesticulation, juvenile gesticulation. So we have to, so I have lived in Africa the first 2 decades of my life. And even in the US now, I spend a lot of my time talking, researching, reading, and even writing about Africa. And I can tell you that when I see projects like this, like the one happening in Congo, I cover my eyes and I pray that it is actually true. Like there's a prayer behind it. That the people who organize this conference are not doing it as one of the ways to steal money and give a budget to the government. And that they are actually doing it because they feel that the Congolese men and women, the youth, have a contribution to make to the country. And that the Congolese themselves believe it, the young people themselves believe it. Because when we talk about perception, okay, how people think of African youth, it sounds great, but we have ourselves adopted negative perceptions about ourselves. That is, I have a perception about myself. It doesn't matter what you say to me. I know who I am and I know what I have. So other people's perception have little or no impact on me at all. Now, the question is, why is it that external perceptions have profound consequences in the African continent and among African youth? The reason is because African youth themselves don't know who they are. Now, when we talk, my brother talked about, my brother of the legacy order, he talked about the fact that African youthful population is a positive thing. And I can sit here right now and tell you it might not necessarily be a positive thing. Because young people without jobs, young people without purpose, without vision can become serious problems to nations. And we have seen it. Since I was born, we talk about Africans' future and the future of young people. The future of young people, we are the leaders of tomorrow. I'm in my 30s now, we are still leaders of tomorrow. In my 40s, I'll still be leaders of tomorrow. And we have leaders who cannot stand up straight for 5 minutes. But African youth are still leaders of tomorrow. I was going to ask the question, what is the age limit of somebody being a youth? What is the age? When you're 50, are you still a youth? And 60, are you still a youth? When you're 70, are you still a youth? Like, what is the age? Because when we need to contextualize this conversation as precise as possible. As precise as possible. Now, in that practical sense of things, we can no longer sustain conversations that are inspired by vain gesticulation, vain, empty, flamboyant ideas. If you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, the first needs that a human being has is physical needs: food, security, clothing, where they stay. My brothers, all of us here are from Africa except for our sister. What is our water situation in Cameroon, for example? What is our food situation in Cameroon, for example? What is the places where we live, for example? So that you have these young people who they talk nicely and they even, so sometimes you feel like there's this castles in the air idea around the things that we do, that we don't go to the nitty-gritties of what we, like, go to the matter itself and deal with it so that we progress. So I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. So we are hanging on the air and we are trying to build from the air and there's no foundation. And then you ask me, Solomon, what is the foundation? The foundation has to go back to us saying, what is my purpose in life? What do I want to do? What are my values? What contributions do I think as a young person do I have to contribute to my country? This project that I'm building, how many people do I want to be affected by it? Why am I building the project? And am I ready to stand and defend the project no matter what? This is the questions African youth have to answer, Clarice. We can no longer just keep having one conference useless conference to another, because Africans have a lot of conferences. Africans organize like a million conferences a year, and people still don't have water. The roads are not done. People barely have food to eat. We import everything from China. Our clothes, our shoes, our hair, our body cream, everything is imported. Even toothpicks are imported from China. I don't want to be pessimistic. I'm simply saying that we should not have a grandiose mindset about these things, but that we actually look at the real problems that are affecting us. So long as we don't go to the cancer and cut it out, and we think paracetamol will solve the problem, we will wake up 30 years from now, 40 years from now, and the cancer would have grown and taken over our brains, instead of going through the painful process of actually taking out the cancer as small as it is right.
Absolutely being realistic, but then still counting the milestones or the strides that have already been recorded so far. And I think a solution to the problems which you just highlighted, Solomon, it's actually in this perception that we are looking at today, which actually comes to join or align with the idea of this the events that held in Congo Brazzaville, because it's holding in a country where you see how media narratives have actually probably cajoled young people into becoming, today the country is facing what we call bébé noir, and an event like this is a solution towards changing the mindset. You, as the founder of probably the Afro Foundation Destiny, you may want to elaborate more on how perception, changing the mindset, is the way forward towards that base that Solomon highlighted that we need together with such platforms like the events that just concluded in Congo, to be able to propel the African youth, to give them that mental identity that will lead us towards this particular trajectory of greater transformation, being solutions providers to the problems of the continent. It's true, we are going to look policy-wise in the hours ahead or the minutes ahead, but then let's try to understand this perception and its importance in galvanizing the young people and changing perception.
Okay, thank you again, Clarice. There is a general perception, especially in Cameroon, that youths are beneficiaries, not co-creators to policy. It is a general perception in Cameroon. Yeah, I want to give an example. Yes, what is happening in Congo is good, but I want to give an example from a top statesman from Cameroon of what he said about youth involvement in policy. Now, there is this very popular talk show in Cameroon where the host actually hosts leaders and politicians in Cameroon, and they talk about maybe governance issues and that. And this was a former prime minister, by the way. And he was asked a question: when you entered the government, you were a youth, about 29 years old. And now that you are prime minister, has it ever occurred to you in one stage in time, when the president gave an order for you to recommend positions for ministers, did you ever think about the youth? And this was his answer. He said, at the time he entered the government at the age of 29, he was far mature. And he thinks youth of today are not in the same position of maturity as he is. So his recommendations never carried a recommendation of the youth. I was shocked by that answer, because I think it's a general, if our leaders can have that perception of youth, how can they engage us in the change process of a nation with that perception? It means they see us as just beneficiaries and not co-creators of policy. That is why, if you have to look at the entire government's, I'm not a fan of affirmative action, by the way. I believe in competency, I believe in excellence, but I also believe if we have to change things, the reality of the people on which the problems we want to change have to be represented. Majority of the problems we have in a country like Cameroon, majority of the problems we have in Africa, majority of the people who face those problems are youth. They are young people. If you want to talk about poverty, it's youth. If you want to talk about unemployment, it's youth. If you want to talk about the issue of security, it's youth who go to the streets, it's youth who take up arms, it's youth who engage in violence. So why not inculcate them in the policy strategy of a nation to address all these things? I was so glad this year when the president came up and said he's allocating a special part, the president of Cameroon, by the way, allocating a special part of the budget to cater for the needs and the aspirations of the youth. Yes, there's a budget. It's a good thing. But who are the youths who are directly involved in enacting those policies in place? I find none. We still have the aged people. You know, the times have changed. We cannot live in this society and claim that the elderly understand the realities of youth. It's not possible. It's not. Because they lived in a different era with technology that was at that time. Nowadays, it's quite something different. I am really jealous sometimes when I watch national news or international news, and I find how youths in other countries are doing great. For example, we have Mam Danny, who just became the mayor of New York City at 34 years old. It's you know, in Africa, if you have to break such a perspective, it's going to be hard. So I think we have to start by changing this narrative from our leaders in government, that youth are not only beneficiaries, but co-creators of policy and co-creators of change. And secondly, if government is not willing to give us that platform, if they want to still consider us as just beneficiaries, I think individually, through civil society, we can enact those initiatives ourselves to prove to governments, to prove to the world that we are not just sole beneficiaries, but we are co-creators of change. Thank you so much.
Indeed, of course, co-creators of change, and it brings us again now to see the workshop of the future that concluded in Congo Brazzaville. As a solution, you quite highlighted the role of civil society, and of course with you, Jai, let's try to understand. You're maybe coming from India. What is the perception of young people, and how do young people relate to activities of the nation in line with being very involved? You're actually the founder of the Khmer Foundation. Probably your success story can be like a preamble that will help to reconcile this mindset shift to help youth engagement. Still taking an example of the recent event in Congo Brazzaville.
Thank you so much for that question. And I would like to share the insights from the Indian story. I've heard a lot from Mr. Solomon about the problems he sees, and of course, by destiny. If we go back to the Indian story, I think youth in India are playing a major role. Particularly if we talk about the entrepreneurship model. India currently has more than 200,000 startups, and a lot of them are entering the unicorns. So we have spoken about perception. When we talk about perception, I think there are two aspects to it. One is how the youth perceive themselves, and then how the society perceives them. So one very important thing I feel where we made a change in India was, as youth, we understood our energy. We channelized that energy into something that could make a difference. So if I go back to history, maybe 10 years down the line, back, people in India from top business and engineering schools, they were looking for jobs in Western countries. But now the things have changed. Now, rather than becoming job seekers, we are trying to become job creators. That is a major change in perception. And that, I think, has changed how, not only how we look at ourselves, but how the society looks at us. So Just now, Destiny said if the society or if the governments do not give us that platform, probably we have to snatch it. And that is exactly what we have done here. And I strongly believe that somehow perception follows performance. We have to prove our worth first, and then the perception of the society changes. And once that perception changes, probably things become easier. So maybe 10 years back, when somebody freshly graduate from an engineering college would have said that, oh, I want to start up my venture, the parents, the society would have probably discouraged them. But once there were few role models who became successful, now it has become the most aspired for thing in India. So every founder is taken in a different league these days. Now it is not about the success or failure, but it is about the risk we take in our lives. Of course, once that basics are achieved, the role of government definitely comes in. The way we have the ecosystem has to be built in a certain way. And I'm glad to share that the Indian government has been working a lot on that. We have the Startup India movement. The government is providing so many funds to the youth to start their own ventures. There are different policies to support women, youth, entrepreneurs. Then we have private ventures who are supporting innovative ideas. And particularly in the age of AI, I think the possibilities are limitless. So the first thing I think is to recognize our abilities, work on them, and be role models. Once we have enough role models, the senior generation will have to listen to us. Luckily, probably in India, we have reached the stage when youth are being taken very seriously. And even in government and policy matters, youth are involved in every step. There are a lot of new parliamentarians, new members of legislative assemblies who belong to the category of youth, and they are making a lot of difference, because once you become a part of the policy making or decision making bodies, you can create new policies that support your fellow people. So that is something very, very important. And one very important thing, as an Asian, as an Indian, and for the African brothers also, brothers and sisters, we do not have to imitate the Western model of development. We have to probably follow our own cultures and reinvent it and take them forward, because we have seen how the older models of development probably created more problems, more challenges for us in terms of the environment, in terms of economic disparities. So we have to work on a model that we have always believed in, to work in sync with environment, to work in sync with everybody in the society. We have to take everyone together. So we have to relook into what we call real development. In fact, one more point I would like to add, how seriously youth are taken in India. We were presiding over G20 2 years back, and there was a special Y20 segment wherein only the youth were involved in decision making. So Youth 20 was a special segment under G20, which was totally dedicated to the youth. And I see huge possibilities. I really see huge possibilities. We are the people who have to make a change so that we are taken seriously, and the coming generations too.
Absolutely. Actually, yeah, the tax is a shared tax of on the parts of the youths, and of course policy makers and other stakeholders are involved. I quite remember that the president of Rwanda, His Excellency Paul Kagame, highlighted one time that he was many years ago addressing young people, and he said, "Youths are the future of tomorrow." A statement that is very problematic per se. But then he asks, how ready are you to take charge of the available opportunities when they come for you, or probably when you find yourself with them. And this is what we continue to have a discussion on. This discussion of Global Insight this day with the case study of the workshop of the future competition, transforming Africa, transforming the young population of the Congo, and changing mindset. I think this is just a preamble or a precept towards reducing some sort of disengagement in the lives or civic and political lives of the country or continent. And I think to answer your question, probably give more light to it, Solomon. The fact that the young people have been very absent from the political life, if we are taking the case study of Cameroon, it's some sort of explains why they feel relegated, and this is the moment with the future starts now that we continue to chart the way forward. We now shift from blame to harnessing the available opportunities together with stakeholders and policymakers. You want to elaborate more on this, Javans, especially as the Africa's Agenda 2063 focuses on the place of the African youth. How can we make this reservoir more positive and something that the continent can look up to, especially during these times of huge global transformations with the effects, direct effects on the young people?
Thank you very much, Clarence. I must say that some years back, I used to belong to those school of thought that believed so much that it was a sole responsibility of the government to maybe enact some policies that were going to bring the youth to start taking action or maybe impacting their own lives. But over the years, I came to understand that the government was never going to do that, because it is generally believed and acceptable that power is never given, the power is taken. And I've grown to accept and to appreciate the private sector is acting extremely hard in Africa to participate or to contribute positively to the general doctrine of mind shift, so that the youth can understand that they are responsible. To that light, I will remain grateful, though I was not actually participating in the workshop that took place in Congo Brazzaville, but I strongly appreciate the Global Association for engaging in that. I believe that Globus is a private organization, but they have decided or they understand the importance of youth. And when you look at it, the objective of this workshop that held in Congo, it was not to maybe fight or maybe to create that avenue where the young people would believe that, no, the government or maybe the old people have to give way or something. No, it was meant to give that knowledge or to distribute that particular part that makes the youth understand that youth innovation is one of the strongest drivers of perception change. If we must change the perception about ourselves and about how the society sees us, we must be innovative. We have to be innovative. And if you look critically across Africa, this is not the first or the last workshop that is coming up to talk about youth's mindset shift and innovation. Many will come up, but African youths are already understanding that as young people, they have to be innovative. Young people have to build startups, they have to engage in civil tech platforms, they have to maybe create green solutions, they have to get into creative industries. That is a mindset an African youth should be carrying. We know very well that innovation alone is not enough. Policy actually determines whether youth's actions will lead to transformation. But we have to push first on our own personal selves to see that we are innovative before we start clamoring for the policies. When we are clamoring for the policies, we are requesting to be on the decision table where they make decisions that affect our daily life. We are clamoring for those that are in position to be able to take decisions that reflect what we are working on innovation. So that is what we as Africans, we should be working as young people. We cannot keep on regretting that, okay, maybe today or tomorrow, we might have the opportunity to live, or we might never have the opportunity to live. We have to be moving, because as we are complaining, we are growing old. I was young yesterday. Today I'm a day older. Tomorrow I'll be older. But I don't have to stay on the same position, hoping that things must be reflective of what I promised the youth before I start acting. I have to start acting. Why pressing for things to change? Nevertheless, I appreciate those that believe that there must be a significant change before the start. But I believe that as an African who lives in Africa, there is an express need for me to engage in doing the little things I'm doing while pressing for policies that will back up or will make what I'm acting in become reflective. I believe that's exactly a mindset that a majority of the young people in Africa are actually carrying on. When you look at what happened in Brazzaville, the forum that occurred in Brazzaville, it was not just a mind shift forum. No, it was like a platform that was bringing young actors to meet policymakers to discuss their worries with. And we need more of those such platforms to come up in Africa, where you can actually express your mind, where you can say that maybe your startup is failing because the tax policy is non-favorable. Where you can say, okay, maybe you lack this particular support from this particular responsible structure of government to realize this that could transform Africa. And that is how we can push to ensure that our continent becomes reflective of the population that we actually represent. So I think that we are actually pushing up that agenda whereby young people will understand that our lives is not all about protesting, but it's about us solving problems. So with time, I believe that as days are going by, many young Africans are becoming more and more innovative, and they are hoping that the power that be will enact policies that will make their actions become reflective.
Absolutely, still a shared responsibility. Just to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that you are onto your platform Global Insight, proposed to you by Globus. And today we are discussing the youth on the aspect of perception policy and, of course, engagement or being stakeholders to ensuring the transformation of respective nations, taking case study of the workshop of the future that culminated in Congo, celebrating talent, celebrating innovation, and how can this now work together in conjunction with the existing policies that will actually promote this youth engagement and transformation through mindset shift. A mantra that Global Association has actually carried forward as we come again to you, Solomon. We now look at the position of young people, understanding some of their, challenges, while contextualizing the foreign policy of respective nations, and how, a review of such is a solution to the young people. If we look at China, we look at how the nation is engaged in infrastructural development. When you look at maybe India, we can now highlight the tech industry. We have Russia, the Russian Federation, with security. And then it is imperative to also identify that scope for Africa, particularly as it concerns its population. You said that we should look at the problem from the base. Perception. How do African youths actually perceive their culture, their endowment in terms of the human capital? Because majority of the young people you talk to on the street during our research, the blame goes back to the government. And when you start engaging very pertinent questions, you discover that those who actually make the loudest noise, they do not really probably have what it takes to bring about this change. So now, what do you think can be, as a researcher, a way forward, or the parameters that can be used to help reshape the agenda for African youths, which has started with this competition of the the workshop of the future competition, and some practical government policies that can align with this towards the emancipation, mental emancipation of youth across the African continent.
Well, Clarice, I am pleased to answer this part of the question, because I don't want to do the blame game. I want to propose solutions.
Absolutely,
yeah. When we say mental emancipation, what are African youth being emancipated from? We imprison them. All right. So let me give you let me give you an example. For example,
sure.
With the youth in Cameroon between the age of 22 and the age of 40, we have 8.5 million Cameroonians who are between the age of 22 and 40, approximately. The last presidential election that happened, how many of these young people got a voter's ID and voted?
Sure.
Because if we're talking about policy change, who is going to change the policy? The people who are in government now benefit from the policies that are in place. The dysfunctional, unproductive policies. Because guess what? If young people come up to demand policy change, these rascals will have to leave their position for the youth. And when the youth sit and say, we are expecting policy change, that is delusional. Because these people who are in place right now, they have no business in changing policies to benefit the young people. Because the moment that happens, the young people will dethrone the old people. Just like my sister Jane was saying, the young people have to take their destiny into their hands and force these rascals out of power. So
and
that
not
they
by
are
being
the
too radical.
Yeah. No, being radical. Being radical is not. I'm not asking anybody. I'm not asking anybody to go and play. First of all, I find it very, very
it's good to clarify.
Yeah. No. I find it very unintelligent that after an election, people are breaking down buildings that took them years to build. I find it very, very unintelligent. Okay, I will never advocate for post elections, whatever nonsense people engage in. I just gave you a statistic. 8.5 million young people between the age of 22 and 40 live in Cameroon. How many of them were directly involved with getting the voter ID and voting and making sure that the votes were counted in Cameroon? The last election that happened in October last year, how many of them were involved? If you want to see change in policy, Clarice, young people have to get involved in politics. There's no other way around. In fact, in my book that I'm writing now, I say it's only a mad person that doesn't get involved in politics. Because everything rises and falls with the political system of the country. Everything. So when young people don't get involved in politics and then they say we want policy changes, they're just crazy. I'm sorry to say. So solution is young people should directly be involved in politics, running for political office, getting involved in the political system, voting, electing people, and making sure that the people who are leading the nation are people that should lead the nation. Okay, politically. Education-wise, and my brother, Mr. Destiny, you're in Cameroon. We only study when there's exams. True or false? We spend the whole year watching Barcelona and Chelsea. If we're not watching Barcelona and Chelsea, we're watching the Nations Cup. We're not watching the Nations Cup, we're watching the World Cup. So that the whole entire year round, African young people are engaged in frivolities. Go to the libraries they are old, I know. The books are also old, I know. How many young people would you see in libraries reading when there's no exam? When there are no exams? If you want to change policy and you want to change perception, like Sister Jane said, perception only changes when performance changes. Because perception follows performance. And policy would only follow performance. So if African young people want to see perception and policy change, they have to engage in constructive education, not the education to acquire degrees and have certificates they cannot defend. Okay, for example, Clarice, I have a lot of my friends who are at CRO-TV, for example, who work at CRO-TV. These people cannot construct a simple sentence in English. They cannot articulate themselves for 30 minutes without making silly English mistakes, even though the entire time they speak, they're supposed to be speaking in English. We need to get serious with what we want as young people. And as you said, research is, we blame the government. The government is not doing this and the government is not doing that. When young people become engines of intellectual innovation, the systems will have to change. If the force is not coming from above, the change is not going to come from above, it has to come from the bottom. And the African young people have to become serious about their lives. And one of the ways to do that is to become intellectually strong, able to articulate yourself and articulate the clarity of purpose of what you're doing.
Sure.
Be able to make clear arguments and beat people in the battlefield of intellect and mind. This is how you win fights. African young people need to know how to write with exactitude of purpose. The ability to articulate themselves through writing. We go to school as if we're doing somebody a favor. How many of us study? How many of us read when there's no exam? We're watching parenthood and all these other foods that we watch. Let's be sincere. If we're going to change perception and policy, we have to get involved in changing it. We cannot ask for other people to change it for us. We have to get involved. I look forward to seeing young people running for mayor. I look forward to see young people running for local government positions. I look forward to people running for their village chief. And let us get involved instead of asking for help. Let us become our own helpers.
Absolutely.
I look forward to see, for example, Mr. Destiny and myself starting a company together. I'm not worried that he is from the Northwest, I am from the Southwest. That's the future that we need to create. We cannot create a future by saying, I am Bangi, I cannot marry a girl from the Northwest. Because these are the nonsense that we propagate. You need to go on social media that hosts Africa and you hear the topics they talk about.
Absolutely. And that is a very big problem that we're supposed to come to with thereafter, understanding the exposure and perception, how it is not even propelling these young people to live up to their capacity.
It is not. For example, everybody wants to do a business, for example, in Cameroon right now. The business they do is what? Selling shoes. Mr. Destiny, please tell me if I'm wrong. They sell shoes and clothes that they import from China. How many young people have said, please give me a business idea you want to start so I can support you financially and even morally and find people to work with you. I want to sell shoes and clothes. What I do is I block your number, we never talk. Again, after that. How many young people? I want you to tell me, I want to start a small pottery. I want to start a small fish farm. I want to start learning how to make my own clothes and sell them. And then now I will sit down with you and say, okay, let's build something. I want to start a restaurant. This is my restaurant idea. I want to use the idea of McDonald's in the US and implement it in Cameroon. No, we want to sell clothes and shoes from China. And then we're talking about perception change, and we're talking about innovation, and we're talking about policy change. Clarice, angels are not going to be deployed from heaven to come and change Africa for us. We have to change Africa by ourselves. And this is not going to come by us fantasizing about it and telling each other good tale stories. It's going to be about us looking at each other to the face and telling ourselves that we have failed, and that we can do better, and that we should do better.
Indeed, a very imperative solution was already found in Congo Brazzaville with the workshop of the future. Of course, if we're talking about 70 laureates with a very important project, innovative projects that can actually develop, and how can this help them to have a mindset shift. I think a solution, ladies and gentlemen, can be having youth discussion by youth themselves, and not having youth discussion by people who do not really have the realities of the young people, or probably we need more avenues that will help them to widen the horizon.
Larry,
And with
Larry.
you, Destiny. Yes, Solomon, you want to say something?
Paris, the youth cannot sit down and talk by themselves because they are on TikTok fighting each other.
Actually,
Okay, let's see. Because they are watching football, Manchester City and Manchester United. Okay, they cannot sit down and talk by themselves because so it's like, because they are in nightclubs. Can we be sincere? Because again, this innovation we're talking about, and guys, I know we have to move to the next speaker. It's
Absolutely.
like, can we start cleaning our streets and making sure that our streets are clean? Can I see a group of Cameroonian youth who say we want to clean Boya, for example? We want to clean a Douala, for example. We want to just clean the streets and make sure that they are clean and organized. That we want to form a team of young people who will read books and study and have exchanges together. This is where the change is going to come. I salute the efforts that is made by these organizations to create platforms like this. It's incredible. It's an incredible opportunity, and I hope that it continues. But Charles, we cannot build on sand. We can only build on character and purpose.
Of course, which is very imperative for the voice of the nation, the voice of the youth. With you, Destiny, we still want to probably look at how, from the human interest aspect of it, the internet came, and I'll still go back to quoting Paul Kagame, who said that we are already living the fourth industrial revolution and still questioning the probably the readiness of the young people in making good use, especially of the internet. And Solomon actually highlighted, when you do some sort of sampling or monitoring on social media platforms across the African continent, you see that the topics on the discussion, it's actually disheartening. I think I need to use a word like this to explain the situation. And what do you think, you who is a youth that is actually awake and following already the indicators of transformation, what do you think is that solution that we can provide, like we as the civil society, we as even policymakers, private sectors, to ensure that there is a shift from, in journalistic jargons, we can call that selective exposure. And we are talking, it goes together with selective perception. What you expose yourself to, and of course, how it will help to reshape a mind and give a new agenda or identity to the very innovative or probably vibrant young people who are not yet aware of their potentials.
Faris, thank you so much for bringing this issue up. In fact, it was in my mind, and I just wanted to spill it out. I think 90% of the negative perception people have about youth, let me say elderly have about youth, is being caused by youth themselves. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, we have the advent of social media and the internet and all that. And I think I will say this: if you want to look at where a nation is heading in future, go online and look at what is trending in that nation, and then you understand where that nation is heading in the future. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you, for the past 6 months, I've been trying to follow up trends on social media, especially regarding issues in Cameroon. And believe me, for God's sake, it's the most useless things you can ever think of. that people are talking about and is trending in Cameroon, and you see young people most especially engaging in. But when you have something which is more sensible, which has to do with their own development, that is what they criticize. So in a nutshell, I cannot blame, let me say, elders in government for having a negative perception about young people. Because if you have to look at every ill in society, I'm trying to bring in the focus in Cameroon, because that's where I am and that's my own country, and that's really primarily what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
What trends in Cameroon is just something which does not view. In fact, I don't even want to mention them here because they are so embarrassing. And if you go on TikTok, if you go on Facebook, you find youths dancing, you find them engaging in all kind of, things that are just not into their own development. And that is what they're engaging. If you have to look at that trend, you actually understand that is the mentality of most youths. But in this context still, there are few youths in Cameroon who are actually doing quite a lot. Youths like myself, I can name you. This is Jevans here. I know Jevans. I know quite a lot of youths who are doing quite, a lot of impact in Cameroon, but their voices are not heard. Why? Because of the exposure. And one thing I think, thank you for platforms like Globus that is coming up with issues like this. And I think youths need this platform. The few youths who are engaged in actually enacting change in Africa and in Cameroon need platforms like this to showcase what they have, to actually express themselves. They need platforms like this. And I believe me, Clarice, it starts with the media. And thank you for the work you're doing to put this topic forward. It starts with the media. It starts with bloggers too, because most of the negative issues we find in our society and most of the stupid trends we find in our society today are being pushed forward by bloggers. And I think if we have to start changing that narrative, we have to start giving new narrative to what youth are actually doing, showing what is actually making positive impact than what is actually making negative impact. That is what we have to start doing. Believe me, these trends on social media concerning youth in Cameroon are so unbelievable. But you have to, if you have to switch perception and go to other countries, you see the trend is different. And you know where the nation is heading based on the trend on social media. Nowadays, I'm serious. Regarding the solution to what we can do to change this perception, like I said already, it all starts with the media, because I think media has a very impactful role making, in shaping what people feel. And I think what people feel is what they actually do. People don't act based on logic, they act based on emotions, I think. I think what people feel is actually what they go for. I think the media has a high role to play in shaping the perception of youth in Cameroon, of youth in Africa. They have to showcase the good things they are doing. They have to showcase the impactful work they are doing, the innovations they are doing. Let me shock you, Clarice. We are complaining of policy, but let me tell you that the government actually has policies to empower youth in Africa and especially in Cameroon, but we have no idea about them. But we go ahead complaining about the same policy and say we have no voice in the policy space. Why? These things are not exposed to public. The media has to do that. The media has to do that, and youth have to take upon themselves to do research, to go forward to, if you have to ask around, if I have to take an example for myself, if I go around and ask, where is the Ministry of Youth located in your locality? Believe me, 98% of young people will know. But we are the ones who complain about policy. We don't even know where the policy decision-making bodies that concern youth are in our localities, but we complain that there are no policies to change our standards of living. So, as Mr. Solomon rightly said, it is not to be radical. Yes, policy has its place, but 90% of the effort has to be on the youth themselves. 90% of the effort has to be on the youth themselves. And I think media has a lot of role to play in changing this perception, in making youth think that, they are not just problems to society, that they are the solutions to society. And unless they start acting on those solutions, unless they start taking initiative, the policy changes, the policy directives that will actually change their lives will not come. And believe me, they are actually those policies, but they are not making use of them. So Media has a role to play. The youth themselves have a high role to play. 98%. They are forums. They are forums youth have no idea about. I've been privileged to attend a lot of leadership development programs. I've been privileged to attend a lot of engagement opportunities online, internationally. Let me tell you how I met Jane. Actually, I met Jane going online to invite her for one of my programs. Those are things. Those are things I think youth should take initiative to do. If we have to change things, engage yourself in global partnerships and global educational and cross-cultural activities. That is for you to do. The government, no policy is going to come do that for you. No government is going to come force you to do that. So I think the youth have to take this challenge up to themselves. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, the youths are working, but then we need a very good percentage that will show their engagement in the continent Africa, that will actually reduce, them taking into such very perilous journeys, trying to cross the Mediterranean, seeking for the greener pastures, that will actually help them to have their voices heard on issues that actually do matter for the respective countries. What is the way forward? How can we actually reconcile this? What are the parameters that we need together with the all the stakeholders to move from practice to policy and more engagement? And of course, this will probably lead us to, I don't know if we should talk about rebranding the African youth through an initiative like the Workshop of the Future in Congo, Brazzaville, and many other examples that we can see coming either from the Pan-African Youth Union and other organizations or youth organizations that have been involved in discourses regarding the global topics which have universal ramifications, and this I would love you to elaborate on it, Jay. Looking at rebranding, youth crisis, moving from practice to policy, and how this will, in the next 5 years, change the narratives and even, probably change the agenda that the media do set for the young people in Africa and beyond, or probably in the global south. The question is directed to you, Jay.
Oh, sorry. Can you please repeat the question?
We are looking at solutions, what can be done to rebrand
sure.
The African youth and even youth of the global south to ensure that we have more positive perception and engagement that will change this trajectory of transformation.
So honestly,
innovation.
To be very, very honest, being from a country where youth were never seen as a problem, to be honest, even in families, in the society, youth were always a part of the decision-making process. So, and we have always believed in the power of youth. As far as the points discussed earlier, while I totally agree that with the invent of social media and Instagram and TikTok in our hands, there are a lot of problems. But I cannot solely blame the younger generation. I think the society has a major role to play. Platforms like Workshop of the Future give us a way. Probably it will give a way to the youth in Africa about the possibilities. Mm-hmm. Sometimes what happens is there's a culture. You see your peers spending hours on social media, you do the same. But if we see our friends, maybe our seniors doing something more productive, we follow them. So platforms like Workshop of the Future are very, very relevant. Role of media houses like Globus cannot be denied. We have to talk about the possibilities. And I would definitely say youth need to be represented in different forums. be it political, be it entrepreneurial, because there are 2-3 things which actually decide policy making. So once, if you have the power, if you have the resources with you, and how are they generated? They are primarily generated through entrepreneurship, through being in the public policy. So that is very, very essential.
In data, very essential, and it now brings us to asking the question, the role of civil society. You know, Jabraz, I'll come back to you. When we look at civil society today, and then we ask some questions on how these civil societies are actually helping to emancipate the young people, we can applaud the workshop of the future for this great milestone, and we see sustainability due to the mentorship that has actually been announced and follow up to ensure that the winners of this event actually bring forth continuity in their various innovative projects that will elevate them from poverty and probably some sort of blame game shifting the mindset. But when you look at it critically, you're tempted to say that the civil society and other people with probably hidden political agenda, I don't know if I should put it this way, have helped to weaponize the problems of the young people. And most at times, the advice they give to the young people, incite young people, and a mistake that some of media practitioners do also make as well, inciting the young people to be more radical violently rather than being radical in a rebranding or maybe changing perception and mindset towards the realities of their respective nations. One thing for sure, that the government can never provide job opportunities, though they can make a very fertile environment for such. But then how can we help to ensure that some civil societies and even people with hidden political agendas stop weaponizing the problems of the young people and bring them to the relevance of what matters to them?
Yeah, Clarissa, I honestly think that the heartbeat of innovation and mindset shift circulates around education. So if we all take it as a responsibility to seize every little opportunity we have to shape the mind of the young people through education, we will be moving a step towards the right direction. We cannot keep on be looking at the way people are weaponizing us as young people. We have to look at what we can do to actually completely transform that. And I'll always say that education is a very, very powerful tool that if we effectively utilize it, we will be able to transform the mind of the youth. We will be able to create a general awareness in the mind of the youth to know what is evil and what is right, what they should go for and what they shouldn't go for. It is not, we cannot even be trying to, we know that yes, every time in Africa, in many countries in Africa, the youths have always been weaponized to do things that are not favorable to them, to do things that have grave dangers to them. So we have to always encourage them to know that there are things that you should do that are right. When it comes to fighting for policies, in a country whereby things goes by the ballot, just as Mr. Solomon said, it is your responsibility as a young person to go out and then make your decision heard through the ballot. Anything apart from that, you should know that you are doing it out of the arms of the law and you could be penalized for that. The worst is when you go to the level of destruction, and that we can pass through education. Our efforts might be small, but they are so significant. Somebody looking at the organization, or a myopic person looking at the Forum of the Future that held in Brazzaville, thanks to the efforts of Global Association, will say, oh, May, there are about close to 1 billion people in Africa, but we are just about maybe less than some thousands attending. So how how deep is the impact? No, in Africa, I believe that as a young person, if you succeed to transform the life of one person through the right education, and the person transform the life of another person, it creates a chain that can never be broken. Which is why I strongly believe that as far as innovation drive is concerned in Africa, mindset change is concerned in Africa, and policy participation is concerned, the key tool we have to use is education. We should not just be silent and then believing that no, we have tried, or maybe the responsibility to educate the nation lies on the soldier of some individuals until when we become victims of circumstances of weaponization. So we should be more serious and we should effectively use that tool of education. We should never think that a minute is too small to share what is right from our perspective. And we should also be open to learning. We should be extremely open to learning, because our biggest problem has always circulated around the problem that we believe that maybe our education will not be accepted or what we give out will not be accepted. And that's not the case. When you talk to somebody, you lose nothing in talking to the person apart from your time. And the irony about it is that when you are talking to the person, as far as you are giving the person the right knowledge, you are also learning yourself and you are building yourself. So at the end, you are getting something, you are not losing something. You are not losing anything. So for us to ensure that the aspect of weaponization is completely eliminated from the African continent, we have to take one step towards the right education every day at a time. We don't have to wait till the consequences become so deep in a way that we will have to maybe be going extra mile or incurring some kind of cost to cover it, because when we need to incur costs, we will start blaming or we will start depending on institutions. Yes, the institutions might come in to do their own, but once we see that the cost that we can incur can be covered by us, we should do it, because a civil society that is growing on responsibly and actively participating in the development of the people living in it is a responsibility each and every one of us carry. It is not a responsibility belonging to one person. All of us, we have to be key actors in that. So when we see somebody that is going astray, we should do it. Recently, I'm starting a program. I started a program just about a month ago because I found myself in the university area, which is simply captioned "Life After the University, the Stakes." Because I noticed that many Cameroonians don't know what expect them out of the university. And when they get out of the university, they find themselves in the society, and they start running from one angle to the next without a clear direction. Mr. Solomon talked about betting. I bet you, if you ask around the university areas, you will notice that most of the Cameroonians that goes into gambling after university is because they graduated and they entered a society that surprised them, a society they were never prepared for. And I took it upon myself that, okay, for the time that I'm here, it is my responsibility to guide the few I can guide, so that when they are leaving the university, they should be sure, or they should be prepared of what is expecting them. And they should know what they can contribute positively to the betterment of the society. Because at the end, we notice that most of them leave with certificates, and when they are going out, they have nothing to contribute. We have given the best certificates, the best GPAs, the best performance, but what are they going to contribute in the society? Very few people know that, okay, maybe a minor job, or maybe they just increase, or they add just a bit of growth in what their parents have been doing. It could create a medium company that could tend to recruit others. So it is our responsibility all to focus or to make sure that all our people, let me call them colleagues because we are all young, or our young colleagues become impactful, and we can effectively do that through the right education. So I think education should be the tool we are weaponizing to change the narrative of people weaponizing us to do what is not right.
And of course, which is very vital, you will talk in the same light, Solomon, because when we look at the radicalization of African youth, it's so actually sad. We are sad, and you feel bad about it, and this is what is derailing them from the trajectory. And of course, how can we weaponize instincts, education that will bring out the potential of young people to make them very relevant on platforms like the workshop of the future, to move from the narratives of hopeless youth to some sort of a more promising social network that can create a sustainable chain of transformation to bring the Africa we want?
The short answer to that, my friend Larry, is agency. It's agency. We are responsible for ourselves. And the tribal mentality that we have is only destructive. We are all contributors to our society. And if our society is functional, we are dysfunctional. That's what democracy is. And that's what is practiced in most African countries. If we are contributing, each person. So what I'm saying is me and Mr. Destiny don't have a right to criticize our government because we are the government. We voted the government. Whether we voted or we did not vote, we voted the government. And we're talking about civil society. I worry about civil society, but I want to talk about radicalization a little bit.
Sure.
You can only radicalize somebody without agency. So the ease to which African youths are being radicalized is because they are youths without agency. My brother of Legacy Holdings, with the future that you're building for yourself and the efforts you put together in building your future, can somebody radicalize you? Can somebody tell you to go and break building after an election?
Where will I take the done from?
It's impossible. You don't even have it. Yeah. It's impossible. The solution to this, is agency. Even the education Mr. Destiny is talking about. What kind of education? Cameroon has approximately about 1,100 graduates agriculture from the departments of agriculture in different state and private universities in Cameroon every year, 1,000. But we import almost 60% of our food abroad.
Very problematic.
So what is the education we're talking? Have you heard how our brothers and sisters speak? People with bachelor's degrees and master's degrees. They talk like kindergartens and people in preschool. And when you talk to them, they tell you, you're showing us that you're the only one who is educated. All of us are educated. We have degrees.
And what is your degree bringing as a solution to probably
the
to a problem?
Thing is the courage to do good.
Sure.
We don't have, so this is the thing. You don't have the right to be a dysfunctional human being. It's not, you don't have a right. We have a responsibility to the society we are part of. And the responsibility you have is to be a constructive member of that society. If you spend your time playing party fool, you might as well do something so you disappear from that society. Because we can't be pointing fingers when we are not taking responsibilities. Clear is the only way out of radicalization is responsibility. Because what makes you feel that you have the right to go break somebody's store? Somebody who has worked so hard to build a house, you break it down because you're angry about an election. What gives you the right? What makes you think? Because you've never built a house before. Because if you have built a house, you don't break another one down. Now let's talk about civil society a little bit. First of all, civil society organizations, they make me laugh, seriously. They are so pathetic, they make me laugh, Clarissa. I'm sorry. The language I use, they make me laugh. Because number one, they are pseudo-political parties. And they are very,
largely
very
opposition
good.
to be precise.
Yes, of course. What they do is they ferment anger so that they can feel relevant. They ferment anger, anti-government anger, whether it is sex and sexual parity anger, whether it is gender inequality anger, whatever anger they can ferment among the youth. The only way they feel relevant is by fermenting anger. The second thing is there's excessive Western influence in African civil society. Excessive Western influence. Most of them are financed from the West. Most of them are managed from the West. Most of them, human resources, the major human resources is from the West. And I can tell you right now, with no fear of contradiction, there is no Western country, there's no Western politician, no Western millionaire or billionaire that sits up at night thinking about how Africa can grow.
That is it.
Please, I need you to listen to me. There is no Western politician. There is no Western civil society organization with an extension in Cameroon. There's no oil in Africa. There's no Westerner anywhere that sits and have nightmares about African development. Zero. So any Western organization that is in Cameroon for a particular benefit. And it is not for the benefit of Cameroon. And so long as these civil societies keep getting sponsored, keep getting finance, keep getting human resources, keep getting ideas from the West for what Africa needs, these civil societies are not civil societies. They are civil weapons against the African youth and the African people. Okay? The third is, even civil society organizations that are run and controlled by Africans themselves, African youth, African people, these civil societies, they lack so much resources that they depend on this useless gesticulation to feel relevant so they can get some kind of funding. Clarice, follow the money, you'll find the idea.
Absolutely.
Follow the money, you find the idea. Follow the money, you find the monster behind the idea. So I'm saying, so you're asking us a question. The weaponization of African youth by civil society, they can't do any better. Because the objective of most of these civil societies is not for the good of Africa, especially those that have any link whatsoever with the West. And I'm not somebody who throw blame games around. I'm simply telling you, any civil society that have any link, especially financially, from the West, is meant to keep African young people angry, dysfunctional, discombobulated, dysregulated, fragmented, and stupid. That is the objective. There's no other objective. And so I'm sorry, but I'm not particularly interested on what civil societies can do and how we can change them. We can't, because that is the objective. The objective is to keep African youth angry and dysfunctional. I'm going back to the responsibility that each and every African youth has. Yeah. Your education is your responsibility.
Sure.
The fact that you can start a company is your responsibility. For you and for your society, you have a responsibility to be a productive member of the society. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you are an enemy to that society. There are no two ways to. And so most African young people are enemies to their own countries. I just gave you an example here. 8.5 million Cameroonians are people between the age of 22 and 40.
Sure.
Mr. Destiny, the elections of 2018, how many people voted in the elections of 2018? About 2.8 million Cameroonians voted. Mr. Jane, I need you to listen to this very carefully. Cameroonian youths between the age of 22, which is the voting age, to 40 years old, are 8.5 million. The entire Cameroonian population that voted in an election is 2.8 million. And the youth are saying that there's corruption in the country, there's unemployment in the country. They are the ones directly responsible to that corruption. They are the ones directly responsible to the incompetence that we see in our government. They are the ones directly responsible to the fact that we don't have water, we don't have electricity, we don't have anything. The youth are responsible. If 8.4 million youths in Cameroon engaged in voting for the mayors who run their cities, and the communal organizations that run their communities,
sure.
I promise you, the bad government would have to give way, because this bad government can handle 2.8 million votes and corrupt it. But when it goes to 10 million votes, they will not be able to handle it. The police will fall apart. because the water, the volume of the water and the velocity of the water is so strong for that the breeze of corruption and dysfunction to hold. If 10 million Cameroonians, young Cameroonians engaged in the political system, we can have this conversation from today to tomorrow, Clarice. If the politics of the country doesn't change, everything else fails. Everything in the country rises and falls with the political system of that country. And if the African youth don't get involved in the politics of their country, they can be dreaming until they turn 50. And the dream will never change. And the older they get, those dreams will become nightmares.
Of course, we are in the era of a narrative shifter, total global transformation, where we give new meaning, new definitions to global terms like international relations, globalization, and of course, diplomacy. And today we are focused on youth diplomacy, the one that is embedded in innovation and of course bringing about the innate abilities of young people towards making them become catalysts for change, positive change and development. And that's what we witness in Congo Brazzaville with the workshop of the future. And from all that has been said so far by our guests this day, we begin to ask this question, coming back to your Destiny for the role of a new, concept of the public relations that will help propel the African young people, and how there's the workshop of the future represents already that tool, a PR tool that can, among others, that can gradually or subtly align with the existing policies in place that will help shift that exposure narrative towards ensuring the Africa we want, the one that the youthful population is practically engaged, be it theoretically in their ideas and of course practically in how they fend for themselves and make decisions also that do matter in their respective countries. That's a reality already in some African states. Destiny, your mic is muted, I think. Your mic is muted. We can't hear you, Destiny.
Yes.
Sure.
Excuse me, can you just go back 1 minute? I had a network hitch. I didn't hear you well.
Actually, we are looking at from what has been said so far and from what Mr. Solomon ended, we begin to ask ourselves, the parameters of the new PR policy that we can, prepare for the young people to make them more actually positive, very positive in the transformation of the continent, and also aligning with Africa's Agenda 2063 to build the Africa we want, and highlighted the workshop of a future, which is already a tool among others to ensuring that we have this local moving to global public policy, public relations that will help, redefine the exposure and perception of African youths to make them more relevant in things that do matter and that can bring about, total or maybe very radical positive transformations in their local communities and beyond.
Okay. First of all, I want to say that it is quite encouraging that nowadays states in Africa, a lot of countries in Africa, are actually putting youth center to the agenda. The African Union Agenda 2063 actually puts youth and women as center to the agenda of Africa's socioeconomic development. And all around there have been policies trying to do that, trying to like lift up the voices of youth. But we just talked about civil society, which Jevons and Mr. Solomon spelled out. I want to like give a little voice to the aspect of civil society and involvement in like giving visibility and voice to youth actions of change. I think civil societies are the greatest partners to government. Civil society are supposed to be the greatest partners to government. Where government is lacking, that is where civil society has to take action. And I think, as I said, their primary role involving youth is to give visibility and voice to youth actions of change. And through skill building and training. For example, I'm looking forward to organize a course on responsible statecraft with students of the University of Boya. And the idea behind it is just to, give perspective to young people in school, to young people of the university, what statecraft is all about and what civility is all about. Because I come to the realization that youth, like Mr. Solomon likely said, we are supposed to be productive citizens of every society we find ourselves in. And so I want to come up with the idea of giving youth the perspective of new civility of the society they find themselves in. Because a lot of people think statecraft has to do with government, has to do with people in policy making decisions, forgetting. I used to say civility is the highest form of policy making. I'll repeat that again. Civility, when people are responsible to themselves, when people are responsible, especially youth, are responsible to themselves and to society, that is the highest form of policy making. Going beyond laws, going beyond even systems to do what is right. I'm not talking about political correctness, to do what is right for themselves and what is right for society. That is the highest form of policy making. That is how youth can start creating policies for themselves, even without government action. So I think coming to your question of how youth can be engaged in diplomacy and transformation of Africa, that is the solution. Through civility, youth being responsible through their actions, responsible through their words, responsible through their engagement. And one last point I want to cite here is the responsibility for youth to engage in global partnerships and social and educational exchanges globally. This we always complain about youth not having voice in their own countries, and I think the good book says a prophet is not known in his own country. But believe me, they are skills youth have that are being searched for, that are being cherished elsewhere. I'm not trying to bring in the aspect of brain draining. I'm not trying to encourage youth to seek, maybe should I say more opportunities outside of the country where they can live and go and express their talent. No, I'm trying to say there are opportunities where they can connect and network more internationally, which will give them visibility in their home countries. So youth should learn to do that more. I just cited the aspect where I met Jay. I was looking forward to organize a program online. And I said, okay, which youth in some other different part of the world can I engage? And we have our voices together on this particular topic. I went online searching and I met Jane. Why? Because she was posting subjects on her social media concerning topics which I was looking for. I'm actually hosting a podcast titled the President's Diary Podcast, in which I engage, with other youth leaders around the world and leaders around the world to address issues on global international relations and diplomacy and all that. And most of the times I go on social media and I search. So I'm trying to use my example as an example in which youth can copy. The level in which you will grow at home, in which you will grow in your country, is determined by the global partnerships you create. So I'm trying to encourage every youth, whether in Africa, in Cameroon, or wherever they are in the world, utilize your global partnerships. Capitalize on the relationship you have globally. That's my solution to that.
Absolutely, very practical. Jai, with you, let's look at how the workshop of the future by Globus and other partners in Congo Brazzaville probably has come to cement the people-to-people diplomacy that will probably be a platform to showcase talent and innovation among the young people and make them more like community builders that will help reduce some of the problems that young people do have, and also reduce them from being radicalized and used as a political tool for people with selfish political rhetorics and agenda.
Absolutely. I mean, with the workshop of the future, youth got an opportunity to think of innovative solutions. They were not just being witness to something and silently, rather they were actively involved in solution-based ideas. And that is the key. We are in the beginning only, I spoke about channelizing the youth energy, and this is a classic example of how we can channelize the youth energy towards the right goals. We have spoken a lot about government participation by the youth in government decision making and stuff like that. However, we have to go a little backward. We are talking about youth having the agency. Yes, of course, that is one thing that is very important, that youth should perceive themselves as somebody who's contributing to nation building and also contributing at the global level. But where does it begin? We have to go backward. Education, civil society, value-based education. When I say education, it is not only the 3 hours reading, writing, and arithmetic, or for that matter, physics, chemistry, biology. I'm talking about values-based education. If we are not going to vote, that is our problem. But why are we not responsible? We have spoken enough about the responsibility, but what is wrong in the larger civil society or in the larger global order that we have become so apathetic? Why are we not taking responsibility? We have to think about that. Because we are busy probably in small little things in life. We are not giving importance to the macro things. In the beginning, we spoke about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But yes, the basic needs are important. But if we only restrict ourselves to that, then the nation does not come. Then we are only talking about our own needs. So we have to think beyond me as a person. I have to talk of myself as a citizen of my country, as a citizen of this planet. Only then I would be responsible for my actions. And I strongly believe in the power of thoughts, words, and actions. This is exactly what I'm saying, that we have to become responsible not only towards our countries, but towards the world at large. The government can only make policies. They can probably implement it to a certain level. But the actual work comes onto the citizens. There's a very interesting movement that was started by the government of India around cleanliness. That was started by the Honorable Prime Minister. That was called Swachhta Abhiyan. Now, if as a citizen, I am not responsible, if I am not responsible for keeping my house clean or for the surroundings clean, do I expect the government to come and clean everything? So finally, it is on the citizens. And for citizens to become more responsible, it boils down to the education. The problem in the education system right now is we are talking about self-interests only. But as global citizens, self-interest is a very petty thing. We have to think of global interests. And that is where I started about Vasudev Kutumbakam, where the whole world is considered a family, and we have to think of the larger goods. So once we start thinking like that, again, for thinking like that, there is a role of the government, there is a role of media, there is a role of civil society, there is a role of social media for that matter. There are so many influencers, we have spoken about that, who have been putting illogical content. Probably if we can have more influencers who are creating content for the nation, for the world, that will motivate our younger generation towards doing something better for the society. So I strongly believe how the narrative that we set, if that becomes trendy, trending is the new buzzword these days. So working for the society should become the trending thing. I saw the workshop of the future. There was an initiative around gaming, wherein for every good task you do, there were some points given to you, and probably then you can use those points for something else. This is a beautiful initiative. And these are the initiatives I'm talking about. And I'm glad that Workshop for the Future created a platform wherein youngsters, youth of Congo probably came up with such wonderful ideas. We need more such ideas where goodness becomes the way of life. We have to change how we live our lives. That should become the motto. Service before self should become the motto. And only then probably we will look at a world which is more cohesive, where every person, youth, female, male, geriatrics, everyone get the right role for themselves and they can contribute equally to the society. It is not a fight between the younger generation and the older generation. Once we start thinking together for the global good, it no longer remains a fight between two generations.
Absolutely. Think together for the global good, and of course, identifying the respective tax or tax that each and every stakeholder has to play to ensure that we give meaning again to this definition of the world as a global village. And we are going to probably take one last, interaction from you. Gentlemen, to culminate today's show, which is probably very engaging. We hope that, like you said, Jan, that it can become a trend to see how young people are discussing, the problems pertinent to them, and see how they can become more relevant in creating content that do matter, that will make other people become functional citizens, if I should borrow your words, Solomon, of the society in which we live. I'll start off with you, recommendations and probably prospect of such a platform like the Workshop of the Future, and how it can transcend Congo Brazzaville to other parts of the African continent to ensure a positive PR narrative that will have a drastic shift of mindset and exposure towards having the solutions that we actually need to see about the total transformation of the continent. Solomon?
Oh, okay. So first of all, before I answer that question, quickly, I wanted to respond to Jane's question about why are African youth, why do they have problems contributing to their society? Jane, this is the answer, and it's not going to be a very nice answer. Mr. Destiny and everybody else, please brace up for this. The reason is because Africa is blessed to have very narcissistic, attachment-seeking parents. Our adults are very, very narcissistic. So that you hear words like, wait for your time. And Mr. Destiny, I'm not crazy. Wait for your time. Try even at the level of the family. Please, Miss Madam Clarice, you control this conversation. Stop me if I'm saying something crazy here.
Absolutely.
Even at the level of our families, we cannot make contributions on how we think the family should go. We cannot put our parents down and say, Papa and Mama, I think we should do this instead of this. It's important. So that we have grown with the attitude of waiting for things to be handed down and permission to be handed down to us to do things.
Even the things that do matter.
Even the things that do matter. So it's a pandemic of having narcissistic adults and self-absorbing adults who think When young people start making decisions, they lose their place. We have mothers and fathers who control their children who are married in their husband's houses on what food they should cook. This is one of the reasons. And the solution is African young people have to break free from that culture. That narcissistic, self-depriving culture. We have to develop the effrontery to tell our fathers and our mothers that we're going to do something different, because what worked in 1960 can no longer work in 2026. It no longer works. The systems of 1960, how people got married, how people went to school, even why they went to school, no longer work now.
And it can transcend
remember-
somehow to probably how the mindset about business or innovation can work today.
Absolutely. I remember, Clarice, how I argued with my uncle for months to let his son go to a computer school instead of going to study geography in the university. He went to a point where I had to pay the boy's school fees. Okay, so this African young people have to break free. We have been chained by emotional entanglements. We have to break free and take the courage and take our lives in our own hands.
Absolutely.
And programs that these programs that are put together by organizations like the one we're talking today, like what is happening in Congo Brazzaville, it's incredible. I don't think I've said that enough in this conversation. I want to say it as we go there. It's incredible. Opportunities for young people to just talk things that make sense instead of discussing which fried jollof rice tastes better. Is it the Nigerian jollof rice or the Cameroonian jollof rice? Which one tastes better? Or between JJ Okocha and Samuel Etofis, who is the better player? Thank God for organizations like this that organize forums where young people can talk about how to build a road and how to build a bridge.
Absolutely.
And how to start to build electricity.
Or give relevance to agriculture. Okay. Yeah.
Or how to start agriculture that can feed our own people, so we're not importing everything up from abroad.
Indeed.
This is my last point. That we begin, as my brother said earlier, develop partners. Even not just global partners, but also African partners, that men and women like myself, Mr. Destiny, my brother, your name on your thing is Legacy Holding. I don't want to call you Legacy Holding.
It's Jevans, Buffon Jevans.
Mr. Jevans, that young men and women like us, Jane, that we host forums where we force these ideas on our young people. They are going to insult us. They are going to stone us if it gets to that. But we have to become martyrs of the new revolution.
Absolutely.
We have to decide to die for this new way of thinking that we want. Because otherwise we will die. Because one day when these people who are fighting after election revolution, whatever nonsense they do, one day you sit in your house and they'll come and kill you in your house. So we have to now make sure that doesn't happen by engaging courageously in having these conversations like what Mr. Destiny is doing, and having this conversation so that we start one person at a time. I remember I met a young girl on TikTok. I was a guy everybody was insulting for speaking English on TikTok. What are you trying to show us? That young lady right now owns 2 restaurants in Yaoundé. 2 restaurants. From my conversations with her and influence with her on TikTok, she owns 2 restaurants in Yaoundé. But she was insulter in
conversations, of course.
Yes, she was insulter in chief on TikTok. When she joined the leadership think tank, she owns 2 restaurants. She goes abroad to cook jollof rice right now.
Okay.
People pay her flights and everything to go abroad and cook jollof rice. This is so, Mr. Destiny. Let's gather the courage to stand on the market square and yell. Maybe somebody will, maybe 2 young people will hear, maybe 3 young people will hear, and the change that we expect and want.
Sure.
It's going to be enshrined through those conversations.
Indeed, having a positive or peer groups, will lead to this total transformation together to work for actually the future of Africa. Your recommendations as we culminate from Javans.
Once more, I just want to say that as an African living in a continent where we have a greater population made up of a young person, it is our responsibility, as I always say, to do our own little quarter to ensure that our continent advances. We should always be reflective of what we are doing with just one sole objective, pushing Africa ahead. We understand that policies are important. Policies are meant to push us or maybe to create the environment for us to triumph. But as we are pushing for the policies, we should also be working for ourselves. We have to change the narrative. We have to tell our story, and we have to be reflective of the story we are telling. We are not going to be seen through the lens of the story told by another person. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Destiny. Please take a message, especially for the winners of this workshop of the future competition that held in Congo, Brazzaville.
Yeah, so I want to say that my top, I have actually two top recommendations, and there are already forums on which youths can engage themselves in policy creation. So one of my recommendations is for youths to actually do this themselves. If you should not be waiting for laws for government to do that for you, but try to engage yourself in platforms, that is going to give you voice, that's going to give you visibility, that's going to get you involved in policy making and in effective policy decisions. Another recommendation is to engage in high skill and educational development for your own sake and for the sake of your community. To the graduates of the Congo initiative, I think it's now left for them to take these skills and initiatives out to Africa or to their societies and to implement whatever they did, wherever they deem necessary. So it's all about action on ground and not all about words or all about criticism anymore. So I want to encourage every youth that it is my recommendation that they take action to engage themselves in policy making, in policy creation, and to engage themselves in education and skill development at the highest level. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I want to take this opportunity to appreciate the panel of experts because, of course, of the mastery of the subject matter for their very practical and realistic analysis pertaining our topic for discussion, youth policy and perception, and how the workshop of the future actually served as a catalyst to uncovering, understanding again the problems and possible solutions that can be provided, especially youth-related problems across the African continent. It starts with the mindset changing perception. It starts with actually exposing yourself to what aligns with your personal values that will, eventually make you a thought leader in probably a project management or other aspects of utmost importance or relevance pertaining the development of your respective nations. It will help, through collaboration to work globally, think globally, and apply to an extent locally to ensure that we become, very good actors or stakeholders in ensuring community building and the transformation of our respective nations in the world of multipolarity. And it's actually an assignment or probably another huge tax that is being presented to the organizers of the workshop of the future to ensure that we have sustainability, which is usually a problem after such endeavors, to ensure that this is exemplary, together with other initiatives already functional across the African continent, to ensure that we build the Africa we want, to ensure that youth do not actually make themselves heard only when it has to do with protest, to actually emulate the revolution of change, like what we're seeing now in Burkina Faso and other states that have taken over the trajectory of change and development in their respective nations. I want to thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for trusting today's rendezvous as we continue to discuss the things that do matter. We share knowledge, and I want to borrow this mantra from Afro Skills that is being said, that transforming Africa with knowledge, and of course with an initiative like the workshop of the future under the auspices of the Global International Organizational Association. Thank you so much, and I wish you a lovely moment as you stay in the company of programs on your Pan-African Media Television. Do have a lovely weekend, you all.